Hey everyone, and welcome back to Pep's Podcast. I'm Key.
And I'm Tori, and if you haven't heard our introduction episode yet, head over to episode 0 where we talk about who we are and what this podcast is meant for. This week we're going to be talking about starting in the workforce.
So important.
Yes. So, since we're in our young 20s, or early 20s, we're starting out in the workforce.
That's so much. I mean, we, as we mentioned in episode 0, we did an internship together in college, but now we're branching out and we're actually doing some of the things that we've been studying for so long. So we kind of wanted to come up with a guide because we know so many people who are also, just starting off in the workforce, and there are some things that, should be noted. What should you do? Which shouldn't you do? And how to kind of join the workforce at such a young age. Mm-hmm. And not that your early 20s is, the youngest, but, there are some people who at the age of 25 is starting their first job, or at the age of 30 are starting their first, job. And I think it's just important that we speak about this.
Yes. So, I feel like one of the things I would have wanted to know is what to know and kind of what to expect, just so I can be prepared more for the workforce and kind of living this adult life.
Right.
So I think the first thing that's super important to know is that you have rights. Mm-hmm. I recently took a job over the summer, and there was a little bit of sexual harassment involved, and I guess, I don't know, I had never been exposed to that before, and I didn't really know how to handle it. Luckily, my parents were there for me to tell me that it was bad, but I thought, it's okay, or this is just how he is, or, it's for the money, because the money was really good, or it's for the experience. And I feel like those excuses are not, they're not okay. They shouldn't be excusing the fact. So knowing your rights is definitely super important.
Super, super important. And just making sure that you know that before you even get hired, you have these rights. As you're going through the interview process, you have these rights. And you should be aware of them and be aware of what's okay for them to ask during an interview, what's not okay for them to ask during an interview, what is okay for them to do to you. It may not be physically, but, some of the implicit, body languages that they may be showing you, looking you up and down and licking their lips constantly. What is that telling you about that person and about this company and about what's okay? Mm-hmm. And not only a company, but even if you're working with an individual or a family, or, you're at a store and, it's just what's okay and what's not okay. You do have rights as a human being, and you have a rights as an employee or potential employee. So make sure you're aware of these rights.
And even knowing your rights, what you're signing up to do during the interview process, because I know there's been a few instances where I would go to an interview and what they outlined on whether it was Indeed or email blasts or whatever is completely different than what I would actually be doing. And if I sign those papers, I would be signing up for something that I wasn't really aware of.
Right.
So I feel like even reading those legal documents, knowing what to look for and what not to look for is really important too.
Yeah, and have someone read them with you, because there may be something that you may skip over, or something that's written in a way that you're not sure what it quite means, and you don't want to sign up for something that you're unsure of. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's so important.
And so kind of piggybacking off of that, I know my dad is a super financial guy. He's really smart in that aspect, and having him or someone like him is definitely helpful for me just because I'll be able to know what different terms mean, because I am so young. I don't really know a lot about that stuff, like retirement plans or Social Security or stuff like that. I don't know about that stuff. So making sure that someone can look at your agreement or your
contract.
Yeah, your contract with an objective eye, with your interest at heart, I feel like it's going to be it's going to be very helpful for you.
Definitely. Another thing that, we might have wanted to know as we begin to go into the workforce is, what questions should we be asking? And sort of, is this okay for me to do here at this job? Is this how this is done? And kind of making sure that you are flexible with the new work environment and how the culture matches with you and your values and your rights, and just being okay with being uncertain how to do something, and being okay with asking questions, and that you should be comfortable asking questions while you're at work, especially if you're learning and you're new and this is a new project or a new environment or a new field for you.
And I feel like supervisors or coworkers will kind of appreciate and respect the fact that, you don't know everything, and you're looking to them for guidance and their wisdom, because in our case, they're going to be older than us. We're going to be the youngest ones at our job, most likely.
Right.
So even looking to those people who have a lot more experience might even help us foster a relationship with them too.
Exactly. And for any of our listeners who are, of an older age and going into a completely new field, don't be afraid to ask people who are also younger than you for help, because, especially younger people who are in college, they're learning a lot of new techniques and new ways to deal with people or to do the work. So ask them questions as well, so that you can kind of pick their brain and see what new work, or new ideas you can get from them. So don't be afraid of don't discriminate because of age, or don't think that because someone is way older than you, they may not know this new technology, or someone's way younger than you, they may not understand something, or they may not know. Ask questions. And if they don't know, find someone else who can answer that question for you.
And the last thing to note, I think it's going to be beneficial for you if you know that, like, being professional goes a long way. That means how you act, how you dress. We were at our internship one day, and our supervisor told us a story about how this girl was wearing leggings every day. She was an intern, and our supervisor had to speak to her and say, listen, like, you can't be wearing leggings every day. Like, they're very see-through, which that's another thing. Like, as millennials, we wear leggings all the time.
True.
So I think even researching, like, on Pinterest, like, professional or business casual attire, is going to help you in your job. Because at the end of the day, like, how you're dressed is the very first impression you're going to give off before you even open your mouth.
Exactly. I think that was really, really well said. And, we clothes is very important, and it shows the type of person you are.
Exactly.
Is your shirt ironed? That it's something like we kind of like forget nowadays. Like, okay, like, I gotta iron my shirt. Should I iron it? It's fine. No, take the time to iron your shirt in the morning. Take the time to make sure you don't have gum underneath your shoes. It's like the little things that you really have to pay attention to, because as a supervisor or even a coworker, we pay attention to those things, and we say, we make little judgments, even though we may not mean to. We make little judgments about ourselves, and you want to come off as clean cut as possible. And that goes for any job. You can be going to be the janitor at a school. Go in a suit. Because you know what? It's better to be overdressed than underdressed. Mm-hmm. And it's better to have a first impression and show, listen, I'm coming here, I mean business, and when I'm here, I want to do my job and do it well, and that means that I'm going to come here looking my best and being my best.
Perfectly said.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. So that's something to do. Definitely dress professionally, dress the part. Another thing to do is you have to be okay with saying no to different things.
For sure. And I think that's a problem that a lot of people have, and myself included. Mm-hmm. If someone asks me to do something at work, I don't care if I'm drowning. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, me too.
And it's like, it's something that I'm working on to say, no, I'm currently working on a project right now. I can't. Or, can I come in late? If a client called, can I come in late? No, you can't, because you know what? You're taking out the time that I would be spending with another client, and I can't do that, or whatever the case may be. Be okay with saying no. It doesn't mean that you're being selfish. It means that you're being selfless. You're saying to yourself, I'm not going to give you less than what I have available, and I'm not going to, give you a piece of this, or, short somebody else so that I can accommodate you, or short myself so that I can accommodate you. I'm saying no because if I'm going to be working with you, if I'm going to be helping you with something, I want to give you my all, which means, I'm going to give you my all at the time that's needed, for the thing that's needed. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does. Yes. Should we switch gears, kind of what not to do?
Yeah. What do you think is unacceptable in the office?
Oh my gosh. So many things.
I agree.
There are so many things that I've seen that even as a millennial, I am just astounded. Like, crazy things. Mm-hmm. So, the first thing...
Spill the tea.
Yeah, let me spill it. Lots of people at my last job were talking about the parties they were going to. And now most of them are in their 40s. Not that really matters, but
it's set in the picture.
Yeah, they're way older than me. Speaking about how they were getting drunk at somebody's house and how they want to get drunk after the workday is over. And this was a pretty, what would you say, like a highly regarded individual. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like she had a very high position where I was working. Right. She kind of roped all of the other coworkers into drinking after school. And there was a lot of tea that was spilled. I heard a lot of drama. So I think that's something not to do. I feel like staying away from parties and especially drinking and alcohol and all of that, I feel like...
With coworkers.
Yeah, with coworkers especially, because you never know who's there. You never know what people are going to say. You never know what you're going to say, especially if you're under the influence. Mm-hmm.
And you never want to just cross any unnecessary boundaries with someone, especially when you're under the influence. You may say something you didn't mean to say, or... Mm-hmm. Touch someone the wrong way. And that can just lead to further problems, because just because you're not at your workplace, as long as you're with coworkers, you're still technically bound to certain rules. Just be very careful of any hazards or, issues. Yeah.
I feel like alcohol is like the one thing that you would want to stay away from. Especially, like, when you're with your coworkers. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, the thing about it is we're speaking from such a subjective point of view, because if you're working at a bar, you can't, not drink with your coworkers. Right. But we want to bring this to awareness because there are a lot of people who are not bartenders or do not host parties, or, alcohol is something that's not a part of their everyday job. And so bringing that into the mix becomes dangerous because you're touching a place that should not be touched with your coworkers. Mm-hmm. So
that sounded funny.
I mean,
no pun intended.
Right,
but
right. But it's true.
Right.
So just being very careful.
Yes, be very mindful about what you say yes to, what you say no to, who you hang out with, and what you say around those people. Because you cannot trust everyone, especially coworkers. I feel like lots of coworkers can be kind of dirty and just very untrustworthy and
it's
toxic.
It's just being careful.
Yes, just be as careful as you can. Should we move on?
Yeah, we should.
Okay. So, actually, you know what? I kind of want to go back.
Sure.
Not even talking about alcohol, but I feel like speaking about work in a very public place with either coworkers or family and friends, you want to be careful with that too, just because you never know who is actually listening. If you're speaking about a client or your kids or
coworkers even.
Yeah.
Or something that happened at work,
right? Or friends' kids. Like, you never know if that person that you're speaking about indirectly or even directly, like, are going to be right around the corner in the supermarket, you know? So just making sure that you know where you are, you know who you are, and kind of those boundaries is going to be very helpful for you.
For sure. So another important topic, you know, regarding the workforce is stigmas, especially being a millennial. And this just kind of comes with the general topic of being young. And sometimes, you know, we may be discriminated against for our youth, you know, and we're looked down upon. And, you know, I see on social media a lot of times people make comments about millennials being so needy, right? Or millennials being so lazy, or you know, and these are comments that we're seeing so much every day that we start to believe them, or other people of other generations start to believe. So then it becomes a point of they have these thoughts about us, and they are making assumptions without realizing it and forming biases against us without realizing it. And so we're looked down upon.
Absolutely.
You know? So I think we should try to break those stigmas and show that we are powerful and we are not lazy and we are not all the things that other people have said we are, you know, are to be.
Right.
And we are educated.
Yes.
Very educated.
Yes. I am highly qualified to do the same job that you are.
Exactly.
And we're coworkers, you know? So I have every right to be here than you do.
Exactly.
You know?
Yes.
I've heard that a lot. Like, oh my gosh, you're so young. Like, are you in high school? Or I get mistaked for middle school students all the time. And it can be very disheartening, but I feel like that's just even more motivation to be like, no, like, I'm not. Yes, I'm young. Yes, I might not have all the experience in the world or all of the wisdom in the world, but I'm still here. And you're still here with me.
And we need to go through this together.
Yeah, we're going through this together. And no matter what age I am, like, you know, we're still doing the same thing.
Right.
So I'm highly capable of doing
this job.
Yeah.
And people have to, you know, just accept it. So, you know, if you feel like someone is discriminating you because of your age or making you feel a type of way, I think a friendly reminder, hey, you know, by the way, you made a comment earlier about X, Y, and Z. I don't feel comfortable with that, you know, or yeah, I'm young, but I'm also very qualified. It takes the little comments and just remind people that you are capable of being there, and don't let them make you feel sorry about your age or make you feel bad or make you feel like you're not worth it or make you feel that you can't be qualified. Because guess what? Everybody started off at zero with zero experience, and they made their way to 2 years, to 3 years, to a decade, and you're starting off. And you know, you should be regarded as any other employee at that establishment.
Right, exactly. Now, we're also not saying, like, because we're doing the same job, like, we know everything. I think we've accepted the fact that we are young and we are starting out in this workforce, we don't have all the answers. And I feel like that's where like a very supportive supervisor comes in, or a supportive friend or coworker.
Mentor.
Exactly. To give us those answers or kind of guide us in a certain way. But there's just a lot of stigma and a lot of discrimination around like young people in the workforce overall.
And I think it can, affect the power dynamic between a coworker and supervisors. And, as a young person or as a new person, because as I mentioned before, you can be 30 or 40 years old and, an older person still feel like, you're not ready or feel less than because someone is making you feel that way. And it's up to you to be respectful of these, allegations or these dynamics or the way that people may be, putting the types of things that people may be putting into your head about yourself. Be respectful of them, but not obedient. Stay true to yourself and know that you are capable to be there and you are qualified to be there.
Perfect.
So, yeah, for sure.
So, I guess we'll wrap it up here for right now.
And if you like what you hear, please make sure to share this podcast with your friends, your neighbor, your coworker, everybody.
And don't forget to check us out on other platforms. You can find us at Peps Podcast. That's PEPS Podcast on Twitter and Instagram.
And remember to put a pep in your step.